Introducing a lineup of international award-winning and talented indie authors, only on the Writers' Corner live show. Welcome to the Writers' Corner live show, your weekly water cooler for authors and readers. Join us now for 30 minutes of insightful conversation with some of the biggest names in the industry. We feature award-winning authors, New York Times and USA Today bestsellers, but also international indie sensations. Don't go away. We'll be right back with the Writers' Corner live show.
Imagine a world where the lines of reality blur with the fantastical. Embark on journeys from humble beginnings to the pinnacles of literary greatness. On the Writers' Corner, we delve into the lives of unique wordsmiths, known for their compelling storytelling. They are artisans who craft fantastical realms, etched in our memory long after the final page is turned. Every tale begins with a single word, a single idea. Authors create sensations that keep you on the edge of your seat. Witness how they transform setbacks into stepping stones, use refusals to spark growth and turn rejections into catalysts for new inspiration. Witness the diversity in writing as it gives birth to a vast array of genres, from drama to mystery to children's stories, fantasy, and reality. Join us as we uncover sources of inspiration and the magic that defines the author's craft. Find out how authors breathe life into their characters and meticulously craft narratives and plots that captivate readers. Get a sneak peek into upcoming works and join us as we celebrate literary greatness only on the Writers' Corner. We don't just celebrate best-selling Amazon and New York Times authors, but also indie authors. Join us on the journey from the birth of a tale to the creation of a masterpiece, only on the Writers' Corner live show. Stay tuned.
If you're just joining us, then welcome to the Writers' Corner live show. If you're not yet following us on social media, please give us a follow, because if you do, you'll get notified as soon as we go live. I'm Bridgetti Lim Banda from Cape Town in South Africa, and in today's show, we're going to be welcoming Samantha Atzeni. Our live stream is brought to you by Creative Edge, StreamYard, and BeLive Media. With immense gratitude to BSN, your all-in-one entertainment revolution, making it possible for our show to be on Roku, Amazon Fire, Google TV, and very soon Apple TV. So go ahead, join BSN for a world of boundless creativity. And so welcome to you, our viewers and listeners, to the Writers' Corner live show. But before we introduce our amazing guests, Samantha Atzeni, first let me say hello to my friend and co-host Mary Elizabeth Jackson. Mary is a passionate author and certified special needs and disabilities advocate, and she is committed to amplifying underrepresented voices. Mary's also a speaker, educator, ghostwriter, and songwriter. Mary, how are you today, my friend?
I am wonderful. I always love getting to spend today with you. We have so much fun. And we're going on 6 years this summer that we started this venture together. And all the hundreds of authors that we've met, it's just been truly amazing. And what a blessing. And we have another great author today for our show, don't we?
Yes, we do. Oftentimes we have authors come back repeatedly onto the show, which we absolutely love. We've not yet had Samantha Atzeni on our show. So for those of you who've not met her like us, but we're about to get to know her a lot better, she's a versatile writer with a Master of Arts who delves into prose, comics, and academic scholarship. She co-authored The Mother Principle, a graphic novel series, as well as The Legend of Dave Bradley. And also she's got an upcoming book called Wine and Cheese, which is spelled Whine, Wine and Cheese. You need to ask her about that.
Yeah.
And it's part of her One and Done series. But she also shares that beyond her writing, Samantha's also the co-publisher of Read Furiously. Now, that sounds very interesting. Yes. Apparently, it's a family-owned traditional publishing house with a mission to foster sustainable reading habits. Now, that's something we can buy into, isn't it, Mary?
Right, absolutely. Yes. And I was thinking about college students when I saw that. I'm like, some of them have to read furiously, don't they?
Absolutely. So let's not waste any time and let's invite her to come and join us on screen, shall we?
Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm well. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh,
I'm so
you're
excited.
welcome. We're so excited. And
Samantha,
I love how diverse what you do is. And I just think that enriches so much for a writer, you know?
Thank you. I appreciate that. Was entirely by accident. I assure you. I just kept falling into things.
Well, you fell well.
you did. You absolutely did. And I just want to give a big shout out to Carlos in the comments. Carlos, welcome to the show. Glad to have you join us always. Love that. Samantha, we've got a bunch of things to talk about, so I'm going to jump right in. Your writing journey spans, as we said, various mediums from prose to comics to academic scholarship. How do these different forms of storytelling converge and influence your creative process?
Um, that is a great question. Often I do have to, first, let me just say, often I have to fight against that analysis paralysis where I have a lot going on in my head. So sometimes I have to really kind of focus. But what I like about it is that it reminds me there isn't one way to do things. And that's something that I also explain to my students in my writing classes. And the fact that I've been so lucky to see so many different types of genres come together and be a part of writing different things reminds me that it's good to know theory and it's good to know craft, but it's also really important to remember you can break the rules and make something a little different. And I am not a rule breaker. It makes me very nervous to do all of that. So I like having that little space where I can give myself that break to do that.
Oh, that's awesome. And you know, that's what creativity, one of the things that's so amazing. I think that's a really healthy way to break the rules and be able to you know, process for yourself or get some healing or gain some insight. And you can do it in a very healthy way. I think that's the one thing that is really so amazing about the arts, period. The Legend of Dave Bradley presents a unique glimpse into the world of customer service and the Jersey Shore. That's a book right there. That's the title for a show, right? And what inspired you to write this story? And how much of it is based on real life experiences?
Um, so Dave Bradley is very, very, very special to me because I actually wrote a version of the story 20 years ago in a fiction workshop class in my undergraduate program. So this is when I first started experimenting with fiction that is fiction but not fiction because it comes from something, but you don't want to reveal too much of that. So you lie and say most of it's fiction. So I wrote a version of that, and it then kind of transformed into the early version of our One and Done series that we had published years ago. And then when we decided to revamp the series, make it more pocket size, change the look of it, that's when I sat down, looked at this manuscript that has changed over 20 years and gutted it, took out things that at the time when you're in your 20s, you think you're ridiculously funny. And then you read it as you're nearing 40 and you think to yourself, I'm not that funny. And definitely and the new voice that I've kind of cultivated over the years. So The Legend of Dave Bradley is very interesting because it is a combination of when I wrote it, when those memories of customer service were really fresh, and 20 years later when I knew I can experiment a bit more with genre and fiction voice. And so it's kind of this really interesting hybrid. At this point, I'm going to say not a lot of it's true. The earlier versions, I made the mistake of writing really truthfully. So I took that out for this version, the newer version that we're reading now.
You don't want anybody coming after you.
Exactly. Yeah. And at this point, I don't even remember, because it was based on a customer that would come to the grocery store where I worked. And at this point, I don't even remember this person's name. Like, I feel like at this point, I just am convinced their name is Dave Bradley. Like, I don't even know if I can even tell you what they even look like, because the character has changed so much.
It's hilarious.
Wow, that's such an interesting story. Oh my gosh, And customer services is always interesting. I think there's never a dull moment in customer services, and it doesn't matter which industry you're in, it's a very interesting department.
Yes. Requires
And
lots of patience.
For writers, it's the gift that keeps on giving. I mean, so many stories out there. And I think about there was a show that was on a couple years ago called Superstore. It was on NBC, and it was about people that worked in kind of like a Walmart type area. And sometimes I'd watch it and it'd feel too real. Even though it's supposed to be a workplace comedy, I'm like, I can't watch that right now. It's too real.
I'm still traumatized.
I'm going to switch gears just for a minute. In the mother principles, the 6 daughters are genetically engineered to embody traits from historical female figures. Could you share some insights into the process of selecting these figures and how their legacies influence the development of the characters in the graphic novel series?
Absolutely. So the characters from the Mother Principal, I am an English major through and through. That is just my background. That is just who I am. And when I was in my graduate program for my master's, I had this wonderful privilege of having so many different professors from so many different backgrounds, and they worked us. They gave us a lot of different things to read, a lot of different authors to study. And when I was bored and trying to figure out if I can experiment with comics, which is something that I was studying for my academic scholarship, I said, could I do this? I don't know if I could do this. But writing it is basically writing a screenplay. And then I give it to my co-writer, Adam Wilson, who is a comics writer, and then he translates it into a comic script. So when I was working on the characters, I went for female characters that are recognizable in their own way, but also ones who their stories are kind of forgotten a little bit. So I wanted to, so the character of Sylvia is obviously Sylvia Plath, because everyone kind of recognizes her name and knows a little bit, whether they've read The Bell Jar or heard of it. But some of the other characters, we kind of embedded different historical moments, I guess, not even just because they're everything. They're not just the women they're based on. It's their time period, their contributions to the culture and to history, and the way they look also came from our extraordinary comics artist, because I can't draw at all, and Alicia is fantastic in every way. And by having those original scripts, we were able to play a bit more, and we were able to create those characters based on how Alicia viewed them from reading the script, how Adam interpreted them, and how they're going to look on panels, and my original concept of it through the script that I wrote. So we all contributed in some way, and all of our knowledge about all of these women contributed to the version that you have, the published version, where you see these characters kind of in full force.
Nice.
It's amazing. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, really. And I'm a big fan of the graphic novels, especially for children who and I was going to ask you, for our audience, what age is the graphic novel? But I know for younger children who have reading comprehension issues, and boys who don't like to read, who have an aversion to it, they are such a useful tool, because I know for my son who's 10 and on the spectrum, that's a lot of what he reads. But he's excited about it, and we want him to be excited about literacy, right? So as the co-publisher of Read Furiously, you advocate for sustainable reading habits, which Lord knows that needs to be in every house, right? With kids growing, all of us, right? How do you believe access to literature and storytelling can empower individuals, particularly those who face adversity, which is what I'm talking about?
There's a magic about having a book that you feel is made for you. I think that opens more doors than anything. It just finding that perfect book and having access to find that perfect book, because especially in certain places where there's book deserts, you kind of just have whatever's there. And to, I live in New Jersey. I live in an area where there's bookstores everywhere. There's Barnes and Nobles everywhere. There's college bookstores everywhere. So there are many opportunities to find something. But also, if you don't know what you're looking for, it is very hard. It's very hard to keep a sustainable reading journey because you feel discouraged. You might read one book and you might think to yourself, I can't find anything else like it. So obviously reading isn't for me. And I see that a lot with my college students. My college students, they talk about how they love to read once upon a time, and they speak about it as if it's in the rearview mirror. It's over for them because they feel overwhelmed. They feel like there's too many choices. They get into a reading slump. And one of the things that we try to talk about through our community efforts and our education efforts is that sometimes you will hit that slump, and it's just like anything else in life. You just have to find a way to work through it, and you have to be patient and gentle with yourself. But I really do believe that reading, you need to find that book that speaks to you, and then everything else is opened. I've had students say to me, I hated reading, and then I discovered the Percy Jackson series. And that was it. That was the end. And they read everything in that type of genre. And that's okay, because that's the book that speaks to them. And with the One and Done series, they're pocket sized, and they're each their own kind of story. So we do this so that if you feel like you can't read, you don't have that time to read, you can't make a choice. These are very low. We try to price them at a way that's sustainable, and they're a really nice low stakes way to find something new, but also read with the time that you have, carry it with you, find that space to read, because that's really, it's a muscle and you have to work it. And it's kind of like when you don't exercise for a while, the last thing you want to do is get on that treadmill. You're like, oh, it's taking so long. And that's how we feel when we walk into a bookstore and the front lists are all 400, 500-page novels.
Yes. I know, right? I love the pocket size. I'm a big fan. I love that y'all are doing this.
Thank you. I don't have time to read. I have a 6-year-old. I don't have time to read anything unless it's Paddington or anything, which I love. I love all children's books. They make me so happy. But I do carry books on my person because you never know. It's better than playing on your phone.
Absolutely. And I love that it's, I love the title of Read Furiously, because it encourages people to read more, and the way that you've structured the whole thing, that it's sort of bite-sized reading. So it's reading without feeling overwhelmed.
Exactly.
At too many pages. It's like, it's too long, it's too much. And I think especially for people in the special needs community, this is an amazing gift, is the word I was looking for. It's an amazing gift to the special needs community, anyone who can't concentrate for so long, because sometimes you can almost like, you become so overwhelmed that it puts you off from reading and deprives you of all those many, many stories out there. Now, wine, which is spelled WHINE, tell me a little bit about that. Wine and cheese sounds very, very intriguing. It's your, upcoming work. Are you allowed to give us a glimpse into some of the inspirations behind this, and does it in any way differ from your previous stories or projects?
It's definitely situational fiction, which is what I love. When I was 14, I discovered David Sedaris, who is not a fiction writer, but I loved how he would put together like these situational kind of funny stories, and then have a layer of truth. So, but I'm not brave enough as he is to write nonfiction. So I write fiction. So this is a campus novel. And it takes place at a poorly planned wine and cheese party off campus, obviously using college means. So it's really not great wine and it's really not great cheese. And I put the wine in there as kind of like a little joke to my college roommates, because whenever we would do anything social, I would complain the whole time until we could get home. and I was the worst person to do anything social with. So when I was thinking of wine and cheese, I said, oh, I should put that H in there, and I have it in parentheses on the cover because, you know, it is a very poorly planned wine and cheese party, but it's also the drama and the not wanting to socialize. And if you're an introvert or you have low social battery, the last thing you want to do is talk to people around a really, really poorly constructed party. And it's also kind of a play too. The cover has crushed red Solo cups on it. Because when you're in college, and I see this with my students, which makes me love them more and more each day, is you're trying on different personalities. And the best personality to see a college student try on is when they want to do adult things. And they want to have these social gatherings, and they want to, you know, they want to have that life that they see on television with all the young professionals. And so that was also kind of my little love letter to that part of the college experience where you want to be an adult, but you're not quite there yet.
But you're trying.
Yes,
Yeah,
but you're
Very
trying.
clever.
Yeah, and
Very clever. I love that.
That's wonderful. And I have two young adults, one in grad school, one in undergrad. So I can relate to what you're saying. And what I'm thinking when you're talking about this book is I'm thinking about boxed wine and cheese spray on a cracker.
Yeah, I mean, that's all you can afford at college.
I know, that's it. And some ramen noodles, and you're good to go. And a water bottle. So you're actively involved in building a community, as we've been talking about, of furious readers beyond traditional publishing. How do you see this community evolving in the digital age? Which is a great question because we all really don't know where things are going to go. And what role do you envision for it shaping the future of literature?
So one of the things that we do, and this is where the collaboration comes in, we have authors that they have really wonderful digital audiences. And so they're really, really good at connecting with their readers. And then we give them that extra boost or that extra assistance that they need. Because, you know, the best way to sell any book is to sell your own book. And as a publisher, I'm so proud of everything we put out, but I love when the author talks about it. So they work with us on that, especially to find their readership in the digital world, because as we all know, it's just screaming into a void, which can get very overwhelming. So it's a way for us to kind of support each other. We also do a lot of community outreach in terms of Little Free Library, and also donating net proceed of all the books we publish to literacy programs. With Reading is Fundamental and Room to Read, and just kind of some local areas as well. And our authors do that as well. We had an author who knows that we did the Little Free Library in our community, and they had a one and done out, The Path Home. And they said, I'm going to do a one and done tour for my book, but at Little Free Libraries. And so they just went to Little Free Libraries all over, and they, you know, it was really amazing. They were able to take what we do and what is important to them and make it part of sustainable literacy practices. So we're very grateful for that collaboration with our authors.
Nice. Very nice.
Wow, that is amazing. Now, growing up is challenging for most of us. I know I had a challenging life growing up. How do you think your own experiences navigating the difficulties of youth have shaped your perspective on storytelling or your approach to storytelling?
That's a great question. So one of the things growing up, we didn't, I came from a family that worked very, very hard, but we were not affluent. We didn't have a lot. My mom was the first person in her family to go to college, so I had that as a role model as well. My father came to America from Brazil when he was very, very young. And so I was surrounded by people who were hardworking and knew how important education was. So even if we didn't have, now it's so funny because with my son, everyone's always buying him books, and I'm always moving books around and stuff. But growing up, we went to the library a lot. I was surrounded by family members who, even if they didn't have the means to get, we always think of education as college education and graduate school. And while I'm proud to say I've done all of that, more to it than that. My grandfather didn't finish the 8th grade because he had to take care of his family, but he read the newspaper every day and he was a big reader. So I saw reading as a way to, despite where you come from or anything, you're able to be part of something. And so now I want to make sure that we are able to give that to as many people as we can and encourage that, because there's still a stigma that, you know, you can only read if you went to school, or you can only read certain books, and people tend to judge people by what they read, and that isn't very fair. So I think my background of being around a family that valued education, valued reading. I mean, there's that one copy in my family of Little Women that's trashed because so many people have read it and passed it around. It's destroyed.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, just, and then having family members on my father's side who, you know, had to learn English when they came to this country. And so my dad, he would always tell the story, may his memory be a blessing. He would always tell the story that, you know, the Cat in the Hat taught him how to read. And so that was, you know, so now I read that to my son and I tell him that story. So books really do have a way to democratize and to release that stigma that you have to be of a certain financial demographic or a certain educational demographic, because it's all there for us and it should all be accessible. So that's what we try to push. And we do have people that say, I can't read poetry. They come up to us and they say, this is too hard. And I say, everyone can read poetry. Someone just very horrible told you that, you know, only certain people can read it. And so we do have poetry in our one and done series. And when we do our in-person, I walk them through the poetry and I give them kind of like a little college professor lecture to show them that you can do this. If you want to, and the drive is there and you love it, reading is for everybody. And we really need to make sure people have that at their disposal. And so the first way to do that is community outreach. And again, our authors are very wonderful with that as well, because they come from all different backgrounds that influence them to push reading as a priority.
Well, I'm a children's author, so I am definitely hanging in there with you with that. And literacy is so important to me. It's one of my passions with kids, to get them to love it very young in life. So growing up, and we are almost out of time, but I think we have time for this last question. Growing up can be challenging for many individuals. We know this. So I know your academic background, though, includes a Master's of Art degree. And how has this influenced your creative endeavors? And how do you balance academic rigor with your creative expression, which you've really done an amazing job of?
Thank you. So I have to compartmentalize when I do that, because academic writing is very, very specific, very peer reviewed. You have to look at it. You really do have to follow some rules. So you can't really be as creative. And I do talk to my students about that, because if I do have a creative writer in my class, they're like, why can't I use this fancy language? Because you don't need it. It's academic. But I went through a professional writing program. And then I was able to go through a literature program. And so I had great professors who taught me how to balance that. So I'm really grateful for that.
Yes, absolutely. We've done an amazing job. We're just so excited to have you, to share you with our audience today.
So thank you so much.
Samantha, thank you so very much. Can we ask you to just quickly show the cover of your book to the audience very quickly?
Sure. So it's like a broken cart in a grocery store parking lot, because it sums up what the book is about, which is just chaos.
Fantastic. Samantha, thank you so much. It was wonderful having you on the show with us today. And we'd love for you to come back again and tell us all about your next book, because now that we've gotten to know you a little bit better, we absolutely would love to welcome you back. Unfortunately, we're out of time. So a huge big thank you to our audience today. Thank you everyone for watching. You are watching the Writers' Corner live show, brought to you by BSN, your all-in-one entertainment revolution, as seen on Roku, Amazon Fire, Google TV, and Apple TV. Until next time, it's goodbye from the Writers' Corner live show. Thank you for joining us on the Writers' Corner live show. 30 minutes of insightful author conversations with some of the biggest names in the industry, including award-winning authors and international indie sensations. Join us on the next episode of the Writers' Corner live show.